Welcome back to the Microphone Playboy. How you doing today? And today you are listening to the Neumann U87. And I think the big question on everybody's mind when you think about the U87 is it worth it? Is it worth all the money that Neumann charges for it? Is it worth $3,000? It's actually more than $3,000. Is it worth, with tax, right? You may pay close to $4,000 for U87. Is it worth nearly $4,000? Let's talk about that. Now, I think it should be recognized by now, and anybody who is probably listening and still listening at this point in the show, that the U87 is not just a voiceover standard, but it's really kind of the standard of standards. It's really the microphone that pretty much almost every other microphone is compared to in one way or another, especially when it comes to voiceover. But what makes the U87 so special, right? It's just a bunch of parts, and you will see a number of videos and posts and etc. that just talk about how the U87 is just a conglomerate of parts that you can build one for $500. You can build one. It's just a bunch of parts, right? So if it's just a bunch of parts, why are you paying $3,500 for it? It's more than just a bunch of parts, right? It's the sum of its parts. The sum of its parts. And that's not just the components inside and the capsule inside, but it's a lot more than that. The design of the mic is pretty genius, because think about this for a second. The Neumann U87 first went into service, first became available to the rest of the world. Neumann brought the U87 out in 1967. Was it 66 or 67? Splitting hairs at this point. But we're talking almost 60 years, as of this moment right now, that the U87 has been out there in thousands of studios, on millions of records, on probably tens of millions of advertisements. The U87 is a ubiquitous microphone in the world of recording, and it has been since the 60s. Isn't that crazy? When you think about it, right? What other technology is still being used from the 60s in broadcast, in advertising, in recording, right? Well, I mean, recording is different, especially in music, right? Because there is a desire to emulate a lot of vintage sonics, right? So you will see older equipment being used, right? People do have their prized vintage gear from way back when. But the U87 hasn't really changed that much in design overall, right? I mean, there was the update to the U87ai right around the mid-80s, right? But in general, all that update wasn't a big change really in the overall circuit of the microphone. All it did was change the amount of voltage going to the capsule, making the mic more sensitive and making it quieter. But the part of the circuit, right, the audio part of the circuit, not the DC to DC converter part of the circuit, that hasn't really changed since it was first invented in the 60s. And again, think about this. Just think about this for a moment. What other piece of 60s technology is still being used in voiceover today, right? There's not a lot. So what makes this mic so good that it is still the state of the art, the standard of standards for voiceover? Well, I mean, come on. Voiceover is a very simple application that has complex variables baked into it. But the point of you and a microphone recording, right? Really pretty much you and the microphone. And then what happens after that has changed vastly over the decades. But you speaking into a microphone, the most important part, the gateway into your rig, the first step, right? The front line, okay? Really, the front line of your rig is your mic. I mean, I don't have to tell you that, right? That's obvious to most of you. But the front line of your rig is your microphone. And I think that by now, most of us can recognize that microphones are different from one another. Not every microphone is equal, okay? Not every microphone is as good as another microphone. Otherwise, we'd all be using $200 MXL mics. If every mic could be made to sound as good as a U87, would we still be having this conversation that the U87 is the most desired VO standard mic out there? No. So why is it? Why does the U87 stand above the competition? It's really kind of a pretty simple explanation. I mean, I'm going to give you the explanation from 5,000 feet up. The U87 generally sounds good on everything, on pretty much every source. And there's some voices that do not sound good on a U87, but in general, voice reproduction on the U87 is quite good. And not only that, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but the truth is the U87 takes EQ amazingly well. And why is that? Now, you're hearing the U87 right now with no EQ, okay? No EQ. So it's laid naked in front of you. But why does it take EQ so well? All right, let's think about EQ for a second. EQ, some people consider EQ to be phase smear, okay? But we're not going to get into that argument. Some people think of EQ as a destructive element to your sound. Some people think of it as an additive, constructive element. But the truth is, you can't EQ what is not already there. You can't enhance frequencies that are not there. And a lot of times when you EQ a mic, a cheaper microphone, when you EQ a cheaper microphone, a lot of times that sound kind of falls apart. A lot of times, really, when you EQ, especially if you have to manipulate the EQ around the high end, with a cheapy mic, that sound almost kind of folds in half. You know, you get to a point where you really can't do anything with the sound without it really sounding worse or possibly just offensive to the ear in general. And that's because a lot of cheaper microphones. Why are they cheaper microphones? Cheaper microphones are made with cheaper parts, with less quality control. And the truth is, I mean, look around. What innovations have there been in microphones, really, in the past few years? I mean, sure, manufacturers have added little, gimmicks to their microphones, right? Whether it's some kind of compression. I'm feeling a lot of compressor right now. That's what you feel when your dynamics aren't dialed in and you're under the gun. You feel compressor. You know, the Lewitt mics are just filled with all kinds of gimmicks, right? But in general, right, the actual technology behind recording has not really changed much in terms of microphones. You really have a very similar design in most microphones, especially when it comes to transformerless microphones. Pretty much every single transformerless microphone that you find is designed around a variant of a circuit designed by Sheps a long time ago. And there is a lot of imitation of the U87. And look, I'm one who is very much aware of of how easy it is to copy the elements of this circuit. I'm speaking about the ORS-87 open source microphone project over a group DIY that I have been talking about with great enthusiasm. And I have shown you some of those microphones. And a lot of those microphones are basically me trying to get as close to a U87-ish sound as possible with a stripped-down version of the U87 circuit. So, there's not a lot of innovation. But what people do is copy. And a lot of people copy the U87 because it's so effective. And again, even Neumann tried to improve the U87 with the U89, which they claim is technically superior. I mean, it has a few more bells and whistles. The U89 has 5 polar patterns. The U87 has 3. Not that most of you will ever use more than one, really. But again, don't sleep on figure 8. Don't sleep on figure 8. On the U87, I'm not crazy about figure 8. Here, I'm going to switch over to figure 8. Here's figure 8 on the U87 in my booth. And this I just don't feel will work for anything that I'm doing. I'm not crazy about this. Let me go back. And here's Omni, which to me is completely unusable. So back to cardioid. And while I do really like figure 8 on the U89, on the U87, no. But I digress. The U87 is so precision engineered. Every component, every part. German engineering, baby. Like a BMW or a Mercedes. High-level precision engineering. And it even goes as far as the head basket. The head basket on the U87. Now, as someone who has been a DIY mic tinkerer for over a decade, I have discovered that you can copy the U87 style circuit. You can get close to the sound. You can get close. But you can't get close enough unless you have the right shaped head basket. The head basket on the U87 is such an important part of the sound. I can't emphasize this enough. The head basket on a microphone is really an acoustical chamber, one that is meshed, of course, so that sound can get in. But once sound gets in, what sound does is invisibly bounce around, right? Which is why in a booth here, I have padding on the walls around me, on the ceiling, so that those sound reflections, those sound waves, when they hit the padding, it cuts down on the reflections of sound, hence the lack of reverb in a booth, in a small, tiny, little phone booth-sized booth like this Studio Bricks one. And even though it seems unlikely that sound bounces around on the inside of a microphone head basket, it does. It does because there are solid surfaces in a microphone head basket, including the capsule deck, which is that little round disc under the capsule on which the capsule stand, the mount, sticks out from. That's a flat surface. Sound bounces off of that. Sound bounces off of the inside of the mesh, like the wires of the mesh, right? It may diffuse, so you don't have full echo inside of it. You don't have reverb inside of it. But the protection of the capsule, this Faraday cage that sits on top of the capsule, it does have acoustical properties. And that's the thing, that is really the kicker here with the U87. I mean, circuit aside, the head basket and the capsule are really the two most important elements. And the way the head basket is angled, that chiseled U87 head basket look, the way it's angled, right? When you think about it, the sound that is bouncing around, the little teeny tiny sound waves that are bouncing around inside until they diffuse out. Those little teeny tiny sound waves, what happens when they hit the part of the head basket that is thinner at the top than it is wider at the bottom. Right? That angle will help diffuse more of that sound so that it's a tighter sound. Get it? I do find head basket acoustics to be very wildly interesting in my mic nerd kind of way, because it's something I had never really considered and something we should talk about at length at a future time. But the head basket on a U87 is really one of, if not probably, well, okay, the capsule, but the head basket is so important. And it's so important that there is a design trademark, a shape trademark on the U87 head basket that allows Neumann to keep competitors from using the same exact head basket design. Which is why when you see other U87 style microphones, like the old MXLs that had kind of a chiseled head basket, but they were a rounder kind of, head basket shape, didn't have that chiseled thing. It was kind of more round and smooth, but, slanted at the top. Rode even got sued in the 90s for trying to ape the Neumann head basket on the NT2. But Neumann was like, nope. And they won that case. And nobody else has tried it. So if you're wondering why other U87 style microphones don't really sound U87-ish, you may have to look at the head basket. Point your finger at the head basket and say, you're to blame, you crappy head basket. You're not the real thing, you phony little piece of crap. I don't know if you want to say that. Don't want to hurt the head basket's feelings. But you can think it. The acoustics of the head basket are so important, and it's something I discovered while tinkering with mics and building U87 clones, and the ones that came closest, especially the Dead Ringer and the Holy Fuchs, which of course I will have to put on the show now at some point. The closest that I was able to come was only because I was putting these circuits now in bodies that were really close, like 98% close to the actual U87. But just enough of a difference in the head basket that the Chinese manufacturers of these microphone bodies probably won't get sued yet. I don't know. And then there's the capsule. The U87 capsule, legend. Absolute legend. And why is the capsule so hard to replicate? Well, of course, they have a design, a shape trademark on that too. And the way shape trademarks work. Think of the Coca-Cola bottle. The Coca-Cola bottle has been around for a century, but it's protected not by a patent. A lot of people say patents. Patents expire. A shape trademark does not expire as long as you keep using it in commerce and you keep paying the filing fees. So nobody copies the Coke bottle without getting sued, because it's not just laws that protect designs here in the US, but of course, trademark laws, patent laws, they vary all over the world. So you introduce a product that's a competitor to the Neumann U87, a copy of it, and I'm not talking about the knockoff, rip-off copies that you find on AliExpress of the U87. I'm not talking about those. Those are illegal. Those are direct, actionable rip-offs of the U87. I'm talking about other companies, other legitimate companies making their own microphones that are trying to be U87-like, trying to convince you that you do not need to buy a U87, that you do not need to open your wallet for $3,000 or more for a U87. But the capsule is something that still other manufacturers have not come close to, and that's also because the capsule design is protected. And that's also because even though other people can find the material and drill holes into a backplate and wire it up and put Mylar on it and, make it look like the real deal, it's so hard to get the sound. Now, I know that Ari Bloss from Arian Audio has come really close. Really, really close. Her capsules are probably the single best copy of a U87 style capsule at arianaudio.com. But other manufacturers really have not come that close. And even the Takstar, right? The Takstar capsule that's in the AKG Perception series. They come really close. Like really the sound of the low end and the mids. Like it has that purr in the mids. That's the other thing. Neumanns have a purr in the mids. A really nice reaction to the resonant part of your voice. That purr is really the Neumann signature. So, AKG in the Perception series, the capsules made by Takstar, have that quality. But they boosted the high end, probably on purpose, so that they don't get sued. So it's not exactly the same thing, but it's close, right? So the capsule, the engineering of the capsule, the engineering of the head basket, the components chosen, everything, right? The whole package. And of course, you can't blame a company for charging as much as they can for their product, especially one that is considered a premium product in its product category, that which the U87 is. So it's extremely well made. Your sound and your recordings can take EQ very well, be shaped very well, because of the consistent and high-level quality of the reproduction. In voiceover, this is a sound that producers, the clients, the people who book you, this is a sound people recognize. And trust me when I say the people who book voiceovers, people who've been doing it for a while, right? People who work in agencies, people who work in production companies, right? Experienced people. They know what they're listening for. When they're listening to auditions, they're not just listening to your performance, right? That's important. Your performance is very important. But is your capture something that they can work with? That's something they're listening for too. If you have high quality sound and great performance, you are going to book work, okay? That's as simple as that. Clients love the U87 because they know that whatever they get from you, they can probably work with. It's a sound they're comfortable with. It's a sound that they look for and listen for. So the original question was, is the U87 worth $3,000, $4,000? Is it worth that? And I'm not talking about buying a vintage one. I'm not talking about dropping $5,000 on a vintage U87 for whatever reason. I'm talking about buying a new one or a used one. Used one's a good deal. This one that you're listening to right now, I got from Guitar Center. And I think what I pay for it all in. I think it was $2,500 all in. And given the serial number on it, it's a pretty recent model. It was only probably in service for maybe a year or two from the previous owner. So, I think I scored on this one. And as I said before, I think Guitar Center is a great place to look for used gear like that because they have a 45-day return policy, which is much better than the usual 30-day policy you get. Or sometimes with used stuff, you buy it on Reverb, and it's either as is or 7-day policy. 45 days gives you plenty of time to understand if this mic is going to work for you if you put in the time for it. But I can honestly tell you as someone who loves this sound, who actually, I can tell you flat out that the U87 makes me money. All right? It's a cynical consideration, but the U87 wins jobs. Clients love the sound. And the other thing, too, is that a lot of clients, right? A lot of times when you do a session with a client, an online session with a client, so it's you and your webcam in your spot, and they're there. Like, there's like 4 people tiled up on your Zoom screen. There's a director and then the client and then, somebody else. But there's the guy who's directing the session. There's the producer on the spot. There's the client and, somebody else who probably doesn't really get much of an introduction, some big shot who doesn't even say anything during the session. The shadowy figure behind pulling the strings on everything. And, I've done these sessions before where, I will do it I've done it on a different microphone, like, depending on the job. And then, you get asked, what mic is that? And they're not asking out of curiosity like, ooh, what mic is that? They're like, what mic is that? Right? And obviously I let the work speak for itself. But never using a U87 am I asked, what mic is that? It makes clients comfortable. All right? And that's worth a consideration. Not a whole lot, but it's worth a consideration. We're talking pros and cons here. And to me, the only con with a U87 is the stupid price tag. $3,500 for this mic, I think is ridiculous. Okay? Personally. Especially when you look and they're selling the same exact U87s in Europe on Neumann. Neumann. You know, if you look online at sellers, okay, in the EU, you can buy a Neumann U87 for about $2,400, $2,500. All right, less than $3,000. And then I look around and I don't see other microphones that are sold in Europe that have such a great price differential as they do here in the United States, as the U87, as Neumann products do. And so why do we pay $1,000 more for a U87 here in the United States? My only thought is because we're willing to. We are willing to step up to that price tag because we've gotten so used to it. We've gotten conditioned to paying this much for it. I think that's crazy. But then again, given its use as a professional tool, given the fact that it is pretty much the best in class for this type of microphone, for this mid-forward sound, for the U87 sound, it all depends on your perspective. Obviously, I'm not going to argue the fact that I feel like I get exceptional recording quality, exceptional material comes out of this thing. I can't argue with the fact that this mic makes me money. I can't argue with the fact that this microphone brings me joy because I think it sounds amazing. I can't argue with the fact that good quality tools in the hands of someone who knows how to use them can yield exceptional results. And you can argue all day that this mic is a better mic and that mic is a better mic than a U87. That's fine. Whatever works on you, whatever works best on you, you should rock the crap out of that. Use it until your tongue falls out. But I think arguably the gold standard for voice-over microphones, the best of the best, if you want the best of the best, get yourself a U87. And if you don't like it, you can sell it because they hold their value actually pretty well. And to be quite honest, I'm kind of mad at myself for not just digging in and buying a U87 to begin with, because it would have prevented me from buying about 30 other microphones, trying to get around having to buy a U87. I think I lost money. I think I lost the equivalent of buying a U87 from all the mics that I bought and sold at a loss, trying to get the sound. All right, supersized show today for a supersized topic. Do you love or hate the U87? What do you think? Is it the best of the best? Is it fact or cap? Is it filet mignon or is it microwave Salisbury steak? Let me know in the comments. All right. Until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov on the U87, fading to black.
In 1967, it made its grand debut, a legend born in sound, Neumann U87 true. With a heart of gold and a voice so clear, capturing every word, bringing stories near. Oh, U87, you're the king of voiceover mics in every studio booth to bring our dreams to life with specs so fine and history profound. You're the gold standard mic, the best all around. Large diaphragm beauty with 3 polar ways, cardioid, omni, and figure 8 plays. 20 hertz to 20 kHz frequency so wide, but the sound so pure you take us on a ride. U87, you're the king of voiceover mics. In every studio booth, you bring our dreams to life with specs so fine and history profound. You're the gold standard mic, the best all around. But not just for voices, your talent extends to music recordings where your magic blends. From drums to guitars and everything I speak and I sing, you're the versatile wonder, the absolute #1 studio king. Listens and ads, your clarity's renowned. In documentaries and films, your precision's found. Voiceover artists know you're the standard true. In every spoken word, they turn to you. Script in place and shock mount tight. You capture every nuance, every sound just right. High pass filter and pad, you're ready for the task. For any spoken need, all we have to do is ask. U87, you're the king of voiceover mics. In every studio booth, you bring our dreams to life with specs so fine and history profound. You're the gold standard mic, the best all around. Not just for voices, your talent extends to music recordings where your magic blends. From drums to guitars and everything I speak and I sing, you're the versatile wonder, the absolute #1 studio king. Here's to the U87, timeless and true. A classic in every studio, forever new. With your sound so divine, you're cut above. Neumann U87, you're the microphone we love. The best all around. 1966 or 7, it made its grand debut. A legend born in sound, Neumann U87 true. U87, you're the king of voiceover mics. In every studio booth, you bring our dreams to life with specs so fine and history profound. You're the gold standard mic, the best all around. So here's to the U87, timeless and true. A classic in every studio for magic blends. From drums to guitars and everything I speak and I sing, you're the versatile wonder, the absolute #1 studio king. So here's to the U87, timeless and true. A classic in every studio, forever new. With your sound so divine, you're a cut above. Neumann U87, you're the microphone we love.